Peggy 18.
Shot here in San Francisco costs $350.
Home's smart houses are calibrated to anticipate your every need.
You're listening to Rock the Grid.
If you want to.
How excited are you about San Francisco? Yeah, star players in the house. Great to have you here. Welcome to the Watch Dogs 2 Masterclass. Are you guys ready to meet the dev team? Yeah. Yeah. Without further ado, here are your two comm devs, Hanny and Chase.
Hey guys, I'm Chase.
And I'm Hanny Duong.
And we are your community developers. Today we have our creative director, Jonathan Morin, here with us, who's going to be walking through the narrative demo that you saw at the press conference and going in depth on some of the features that you saw.
So after his presentation, we will be taking in some questions from the live audience, guys. So be sure to raise your hand. And without further ado, let me introduce you to Jonathan Morin, creative director.
Give it up.
It's very exciting for me to be here today. It's not every day that I have the chance to talk to real players. And I think that the one thing I know for a fact is that you guys like details. You like to know why everything is there. You like to understand how it works. So I'm going to pause a shitload out of that video. Yes. And I'm going to give you all the details that I think are relevant. And then afterwards, the question, hopefully, you're going to be able to grab some more out of me if I can actually say something about it. So let's start right away. And okay. The video starts with a boring background because we had to do the whole acting going on into the stage demo. So that's why there's a little background like this. That's how we pulled off the stage little moment that happened. Let's wait and see. And then kick into that sec video. There we go. Oh my God!
Your freedom's gonna only be protected if democracy thrives. The corporate interests are rigging the elections. Your elections. Your favorite social media giant, Invite, knows everything about you. And they're manipulating your feed to tailor your opinion to their interests. They are fooling you into voting for their puppet, Congressman Mark Russ. Invite wields the single most powerful population control tool ever created. Defend democracy. Help us tear down Invite. Lend us your processing power by downloading our app, and together, we will expose Congressman Thruss. Join us. We are DedSec.
Okay. So we just started and I paused. This entire section is important to us for the demo because that teases the entire structure of the game. In Watch Dogs 2, you play as a DedSec hacker, and the DedSec hackers do operations, and there's many of those operations in the game. And the reason why they're doing those operations is to get followers. So that's how you progress in Watch Dogs 2. So every time you do an operation, whether it's about the impact of social media on democracy or other subjects like AI or even like pre-crime and all the other aspects that we can find in Silicon Valley, you expose videos like this. And then people react to those videos, they start learning about it, creates debates in the streets, and then some people decide to join into DedSec or become followers, and that helps you unlock all sorts of crazy stuff about the progression, which we'll talk about a bit later. This is the button. And all of this happens, of course, in the Bay Area. It's the entire Bay Area. So Oakland is in there, San Francisco City. We have Silicon Valley and Marin County. All four of them are possible to explore in the game.
I don't know. Anyways, he pushes this chick up.
Okay. There's a small television on the bottom of the screen. We're passing by later on it. That's one of the different ways we're using world narratives in the game. So yes, when you do an operation and you finish it, people on television and the news broadcast will talk about that, and you're going to hear about those. It's also going to happen in the kind of conversation that happens on the streets. The amount of those conversations might increases based on the amount of followers you get. So we want to really make sure that the player feels like DedSec is growing up over time and that you have a certain impact into how people think about technology. And this little graffiti is a hint into one of our characters called Sitara. So the girl of the group, she's the artist of the group of DedSec. So she's the one coming up with those kind of graffiti. She's the one coming up with all the crazy visual. Actually, it's Mathieu Leduc, the art director, coming up with that stuff. But this character is represented in this form. So she's the one who will really focus on ethical debates and intellectual discussions, while a guy like the Wrench with the mask is a lot more about punk rock and destruction. But he's still very funny. Parkour. Let's talk a little bit about that. Okay. We created Marcus Holloway based on the Bay Area. So it starts with the area where you're doing the game, and then afterwards you can craft a world in a game that do it justice. Marcus Holloway, the guy was born in San Francisco, but his entire family was gentrified, which is something that happens typically in San Francisco, and pushed into Oakland, and that's where he spent most of his teenage life. He learned the hard way that sometimes CTOS profiling goes wrong. This guy understands computers pretty well. He's a great programmer, and understanding the maths behind the curtain helped him see how fucked up it could be to see people profile people wrongly. So he had many reasons to join DedSec and start deciding to fight the establishment to reestablish that balance and bring back control, along with his other fellow hackers. And we thought that the parkour idea is simply a treatment of animation to embody the character. He's a younger, everything is possible type of attitude, which is very something that strikes a chord with Silicon Valley and all the people that are in there. Actually, in fact, I still feel like all the CEOs that created those big companies, when you hear them talk, it's pretty much like they were hackers when they were younger. Like these guys who are able to see behind the preconceived ideas of how stuff can work. That's what helped them innovate, and that's what helps hackers think and break systems as well. So we thought it would be great to give that parkour flow to it, so you feel like nothing's going to stop you, and that you're going to have this energy to try and break things up and do something better about it.
You're joking, right? The plan is invented so many corporations.
Yes, there's dogs and Watch Dogs.
It's a miracle we get the light up and
Don't take that out. Every one of them. Screw that. You're brave. That's like discussing politics.
Okay, you see that little line with the dot? That's the targeting system. So in Watch Dogs 1, there was an icon, right? And We still have that icon at the beginning, but there's way too much stuff to hack now, so it was just a pizza of icons everywhere. It was completely terrible. So we had to remove the X icons from there to give you beautiful graphics while you can still hack a lot more stuff going on. But nevertheless, there's this subtle thing going on. So every single person around you and every car around you can be hacked, including also other stuff like the ingredients from Watch Dogs 1, plus a couple of new ones. So the way it works is you always know what you're targeting at the moment. And if you press the shoulder button, the left shoulder button, if you tap it, it does a shortcut hack. If you hold it, then I'll show you what happens.
I know, right? So Mark starts raving about Captain Leto, but Ellie's all...
Okay. This entire act was done with 3 inputs. So the way it works is when you lock into something, your 4-phase button becomes options. It's true for everything you aim at. In terms of cars, the up button accelerates, the bottom button decelerates or go backward, left and right. You get the idea. Every time you press the button, it costs what we call botnet, which is kind of our mana system. Kind of the batteries of the first game, but a bit more meaningful. Like you start with not that much of those things. So the hack is very powerful, even if you can do it only twice. But of course, when you're in game and you can endlessly control every car, you're a lot more powerful. So we wanted to make sure that every act would be a lot more analog, so you guys can have ideas instead of us telling you, do this. But on top of that, we wanted you to have interesting choices when you progress. So do I want more like battery or like more botnets so I can act cars a lot more and do new ideas, or do I want a new hack? And that creates more meaningful choices for you to progress, which I think is interesting.
Shit!
Another
Sorry.
hack is what we call... So, little information. We don't have just that mass hack. We have others. So this one is what we call the mass distract. It's something that we kind of had in the first game, right? You can distract someone by sending a texto or something, and it's just going to lose a bit their attention for a while so you can do something else. The thing is, we've merged that system with other systems to make it more useful. So it applies to combat too. So when you hack enemies in combat, you're actually hacking their earplug. So the distract is more like a communication hijack. So if you do it on one person, he can freak out. If he's shooting, he's going to shoot a couple of his friends, potentially. He's going to lose his bomb, that kind of stuff. That you already know. But when you do it to everyone, it still applies. So it's an extremely powerful tool, and that's why there's a cooldown on it to make sure you guys don't end up like exploiting the system and winning all the time. It's not that we don't want you to win, we still want you to have fun, like, not like break the entire game. And yes, we can do the same to vehicle. And I'm not going to say the other third one because I don't watch it. Seamless line. You're supposed to be a DedSec actor. That means you're part of a community. So it's super important for us to feel the co-op aspect. So encountering other players doesn't engage you into anything. So you could basically just see him. He might be being chased by a couple of cops, having some epic moment, and then you have an anecdote, or you can take a selfie of it and share it with your friends. Or you can just interact with the player, and it's just one button away of co-op. Like, there's no such thing as menus or like all of that. You just say, hey, want to go to co-op? Yes, we're done, and we're already in co-op, and we can go do some operations together and have fun. The entire free roam is still available to you, as well as a bunch of different operations that are kind of focused on having a more substantial challenge. If you're two, you can still play them alone, which I guess a couple of you will be able to pull off by your reputations. But I'm pretty sure that you're going to find it still a bit difficult. And every time you're doing it, it kind of climbs up even more. So it's going to get harder and harder and harder and harder and even harder. And it's going to take a long time for you to beat all of the levels that happens in there. But now let's see what happens in a single player.
Hey.
Our numbers are going through the roof, but we just promised to blow the lid open on invite and election fraud.
And we'll deliver. Have faith, sister.
I hate cutting dialogues, but I have to. So this little module there is what we call TeamSpeak. We didn't want to do singular phone conversations. Why? Because when you talk about how actors do things, is they chat in chat rooms, like they're like 50 at the same time. And it's kind of a perpetual brainstorm. It kind of feels like when you're making a game in a room and everybody is hot and have great ideas and everybody one-up each other. It's an exciting conversation. So we wanted to make sure you would feel a little bit that. So when you do missions and you find something, and we want you to feel like they're always there, listening to what's going on, digging for you into something. Like after all, like they're a lot stronger where they're kind of a I've mind type of structure to all the connectivity instead of being just one dude alone that calls someone else on the phone. So we wanted it to be a bit more dynamic. That's why we're doing that.
Sure, if we can find evidence that Invite's manipulating social media to help him.
French, where you at, man?
Scouting Congressman Dipshit's apartment from the roof next door. Oh, we fucked up his fundraiser. Almost everyone's gone. Come on, get over here.
Okay, people, this is strictly by the book. Don't paint outside the lines and stay frosty.
Fuck you. Just get in there and find some rusty nails to crucify Thrust at a social media cross.
On my way.
Yes, there's a lot of swearing in Watch Dogs 2, and it's gonna stay this way. Phone. So we've pushed the phone a lot further in the second game. We wanted it to feel more like a phone in the first place. We thought it was important for the game. And this little bar you see on the top, that's your followers. So at any time, you're gonna know how much you need for the next level, because that's pretty much how you level up, right? Every time you level up, you're gonna get research points. So the third icon on the top, like the research icon, that's the research tree. And this is where you can upgrade your character for most of the skills. Like you guys probably heard of the 3D printer. That's the second part of the progression. That's happening in a place we call the hackerspace. This one's gonna cost money, and that's where you 3D print all your guns, whether they're the taser, non-lethal weapons, or the more lethal and brutal weapon that we still have. And also the 2 drones are also in there. For now, let's talk about the DedSec Ham. Now, this thing is pretty cool. Like, it's an entire quest log of all the operation that DedSec have. Every time you discover one in the world, it adds into your log, so you can easily track one of them. You can still see them on the map once you unlock them, but we feel it's a better way to understand which kind of stories you're doing. Because this time around, Watch Dogs doesn't have a linear story. It's actually pretty open. What it means is each operation have its own story. And then when you finish it, it's done, but then you can do the other ones or never do them. It's up to you. You can even decide to do only online co-op like type of operations, get followers this way. There's, I think, about 3 milestones in the journey of DedSec becoming more popular in the narrative. The rest is up to you to decide if you want to dig it or not. I'm pretty sure you're going to do everything because it's pretty cool, but there's still an interesting choice in there. And yes, that means that there's no towers in Watch Dogs 2. It's an empty map at the beginning with stores, and you start like hacking your way through, doing followers. Sometimes the new people will share ideas of what to do, and that's going to unlock a few different operations along the mix. Some other time, you need to dig into the world, open your net act, and I'm going to talk about later, to find some stuff around. So it's more up to you to discover what the San Francisco Bay Area has to offer. But for now, we're going to focus on one.
Any kind of the same, we don't get to face it. Like any time a murder gets replaced it. Face it. The fellows at the top are likely rapists.
Driving. Driving has been redone from scratch. There was a lot of comment about it not being as easy as controlling and everything. So we decided to rebuild it with the Newcastle guys who did the Driver San Francisco and really know how to do driving as well. So they worked with our guys together to pimp it and listen to your comments to make sure it was easier to control. Turned out to be paying off a lot because San Francisco is a pain to drive, like with all those things, in a good way, right? A lot of turns, a lot of slopes and jumps. And on top of that, we want you guys to be able to hack every car rounds while you're driving at 200 miles per hour. So making it easier driving was kind of a necessity to make sure you enjoy all of the rest at the same time. This is a video thing. This is not a feature.
Yo, French.
Captain Dipshit lives over there.
Yo, check it out.
Huh?
You can see the whole city from here.
Whole lot of people out there, man. Whole lot of people.
Yeah, getting screwed.
You don't even feel it. just numb.
It's fucked up.
I know it's gonna be a hell of a fight, turning them back into people.
Fucking A, man. Okay, dude. You find the evidence, and I'll mine our exit strategy.
I'm really looking forward to know who's gonna make the first French Max in real life. Like, is Mask thing with the highs? I'm predicting it's gonna happen pretty fast. And it's pretty cool.
Hey, is that the congressman?
No, I do believe that is a helicopter.
Fuck you.
Marcus, the building just went off the grid. We can't get in or see inside.
They're up to something. I'll see what.
Line of sight. We've pushed the engine a lot to make sure that we could support San Francisco. One of the areas why we wanted to go for the Bay Area was to challenge ourselves to have way more spectacular vistas in the game. You cannot pull off the Bay Area without delivering on that. I think the shots alone explain like what's being capable of doing now. It's pretty exciting. Now the drone. We have 2 drones in the game. They're both being shown in that demo. This is the flying one. This is pretty much a flying camera. I mean, you guys messed around with cameras in the past. Once you get that baby, you can scout stuff pretty easily. But the most important thing is it doesn't really matter if you're Marcus or if you're the flying drone or the RC jumper. Whether you're one of those 3, you can still do all of the hacking the way you want, which means that you could do an entire mission with that baby. You don't need Marcus necessarily. You could like jump between the 3 very easily as well. You can place them strategically at 3 places and hop from one to the other to mess around with another player if you're doing an invasion. So there's a lot more depth into using these 3 toys to mess around with your opponent. Now, of course, every mission is completely 360 approach supported. So this mission has been played this way for that demo, but you could have went the other way around. You could have finished the entire thing with the flying drone. In fact, the guy who played it, which is the level design director, PY, said to me that recently he finished it with the crane by just breaking every windows on the side, tossing the crane on the side and shooting everyone to death, and he said it was pretty fun. So there's plenty of crazy ways to pull that off. This was just a way of doing it to kind of explain a bit more.
Once I do, you use the botnet to brute force your way in and download everything you can.
But once you start downloading, they'll know you're inside.
Okay, small detail. Within the profiler card, there's a little smiley icon. This is the mood of the person. So CTOS is analyzing through cameras how people feel by doing facial recognitions. And this is not a detail. Like if you mess around with the information of people and start, insulting them, doing fuck yous, pushing them around, hitting them, you might add a hint of what are the chances of them to respond in certain ways. So they can be neutral, they can be happy, they can be scared, they can be pissed off. And if you find someone who's pissed off and turn out to have a gun on him, which the profiler will tell you, then you can start using that to your advantage. That's more advanced kind of stuff, but it kind of taps into the social engineering type of ideas. So basically, if you're wandering around in the streets, you see someone that is very likely to get pissed off and have a gun, you might say, what happened if I piss him off with my robots and try to drag him into enemy territories? Is he going to provoke the guards and then get into a big fight so I can just go on the side and do something? The answer is possibly. You can do other stuff, but that's pretty cool to start messing around with the AI and get surprised by the system.
Be a party if they didn't, and I've got a surprise for them.
Where are we on wiping the Congressman's cloud?
That's done, but there's a team at Invite scrubbing the backups, too.
They're good at this?
They're the best computer forensics team we have. You pay top dollar, you get top talent.
That's what I want to hear.
Wrench, you ready with my exit strategy?
Define. Ready.
Okay, there's two ways to remote control stuff. So I said that we removed the X icon on ingredients, right, because there was too much icons everywhere, there's too much stuff to hack. We kept them from what we call the RC ingredients, the remote control ingredients, because those are pretty natural. You need to hold X and you can remote control the thing. That's true for cranes, scissor lift, forklifts, and it's also how your two drones functions. And this time around, you're not controlling a forklift by doing up-down. You become the forklift, and you can mess around with the physics and start doing your own stuff with it. And when you combine that with a two projectile that sticks on everything, you start having pretty cool ideas that I'm going to let you figure out along the way. The same thing goes with locking with the car. So we have the two mechanics for this. So you can use a crane, for example, lock it, and then control it remotely, or become it. It's cool to become the thing when you're actually inside a crane, which PY didn't do because it was easier to do a cool like vista like this for the demo. But when you're in combat, you know, good players are able to crush an enemy by taking a crane and make it fall down on him and stuff like that, just because you can remote control it and not always change camera. So we thought it would be cool to keep the two mechanics so advanced players can have cool ideas. We like cool ideas.
Yo, Satara, I'm ready to go in. Play me something fresh.
Music. So Satara is kind of the DJ of the bunch, so she can propose songs to go with the mood or propose the thematic for a certain mission when you get in. But it's a proposition, and you can still switch to your phone, just kick in your playlist, which we've pimped up a lot for Watch Dogs 2, to enjoy your own music, right? And, the other thing that's interesting is, yes, we're going to have radio this time around. So when you get into a car, you're going to be able to switch radios to have like the different types of music. And you can still kind of record the music and use your app to actually unlock more music around. But we're not going to have an achievement to find the crazy last song that nobody found because there was a smoke. So that's not going to be a repeated mistake.
Don't sweat the technique. Don't sweat the technique.
Okay. When something is locked, what does it mean? In the first game, we had something called the access code that was on people, and you would use it to unlock a door. It's back in the second game. The way it works is we're doing one access code for an entire layout. And usually, it's going to unlock several different possibilities, so that it opens up the different approach. But it's rarely something that we force. Like, it's typically to open new opportunities. You can decide to bypass that. You can find it in all sorts of crazy ways. So we want to really make sure that the maps remains extremely open.
Wow. Let's see who bit the didactic style. I flip the script so they can't get by.
So when you lock into an ingredient, like the fuse box on the ground that you guys already know, there's 4 options available to you. You can disable it, which is kind of useless on that thing right now, but it's very useful on doors, and that's why he's doing it later on in the demo, because you can prevent AI from flanking your ass and that kind of stuff while doing that. You can even lock them into rooms and have some fun with that for a certain point. You can also activate it, which is kind of the basic activates from the first game. This time around, you can make an attract on any interaction around just by making them malfunction. That's what he's doing right now. He's just doing a malfunction with sparks, and then someone's going to go and investigate. But that could have worked on a door. It could have worked on anything. So we're not like pre-placing solutions. We're trying to let the player do what the hell he wants. And the same applies to his projectile. So if you throw something, you have the same options. You can do a proximity trap. You can do all of that crazy stuff, which I'm going to talk about later.
At least not now.
There's something over there.
I changed the pace to complete the beat. I dropped the bass to a beat. Give weight for every road they trace is a scar they keep. When I speak, they freak to sweat the technique. I made my debut in '86 with a melody in the president's mix, and now I stay on target and refuse to miss. And I still make hits for beats, parties, clubs, and cars, Jeeps.
gun. This isn't our first rodeo.
There, that's the proximity trigger I was talking about. Now, when you stick up that baby to a car and you make the car accelerate into enemies and it's a bomb instead of a taser, it's a pretty fun thing to do, so I recommend it highly. This time around, the takedown they use and the projectile they use are both non-lethal. So all tasers will make them go down. The stealth takedown will make him go down. Actually, even the thunderball is kind of a concussion tool. It's pretty brutal, but he's still going to just go down non-lethal. So all of these dudes are going to stand back up at some point. You have to be careful about what's going on when you're dealing with it this way. But it makes it possible to have an interesting challenge in stealth and support completely non-lethal and fully lethal way of playing. Another detail. On the top of the map right now, there's a little circle with something going like this. So the way we do the craft system in Watch Dogs 2 has been simplified a lot. It's a cooldown, and it recrafts itself automatically. The reason why we did that was to let more control to the player so they don't end up like having to manage resources all the time. The same applies to both drones. So if your drone gets destroyed, it's just cooled down and recrafted, and it comes back at some point. So this way we can create a challenge, but not compromise flexibility at the same time.
Scientists try to solve the context. Philosophers are wondering what's next. Pieces took the labs to observe them. They couldn't absorb them. They didn't deserve them. My ideas are only for the audience ears. For my opponents, it might take years. Pencils, pens, and swords. Let us put together from a key to cause. Also a sculpture, born with structure. Because of my culture, I'm a perfect instructor. Style that'll be full of technology, complete sights and new heights after.
There's 3 different cameras for drones. So right now it's a third person, but you also have a first person and kind of a shoulder person. So up to you to decide which one you want to use. Interestingly, I said that previously that the 2 drones can do all the acts that the player can do, and that's true. Like you can, but there's still additional functions you can use. For example, there's a little button there at the bottom saying attract. The way you attract enemies with the RC jumper is by insulting them and trolling them to death. So you can get them really pissed off and they're going to try and kick your ass, and then you can move them around like that. But be careful, if you do it too much at some point, they're going to shoot the hell out of your robot.
You don't have to speak, just see.
Cut.
And peep the technique.
Who the hell?
You're in. Do your thing.
What was that? Hey, catch that?
We got us a jet set intruder.
Let's track this guy down.
What was that? Huh? Catch that?
Get back to cover.
You're only making things worse. Cool when you freak to the beat.
You're in a line of fire.
Okay, the AI is a lot more brutal in Watch Dogs 2. Like, a lot more. The reason is we're giving a lot more power to the player. So expect to really need to use hacking to be good. I mean, you can still pull it off just with shooting if you're really great, but you're not going to be as efficient and if you use the hacking around you to pull it off. That's one of the things that was important to us, to make sure that we balance back the 2 systems and have something that's more like balance between the 2.
Don't sweat the technique.
Take cover! Your exit strategy is ready. Oh man, you're gonna love this.
If you didn't notice, that was one of the mass distract I was talking about. So he managed to pull that off because now he knows he has everything he needs to get out of there. The way we're balancing things is that when the fight starts, there's definitely reinforcements going to come back. So if you're going stealth, you're okay. If you take down a few before you deal with them, you're going to be fine. If you can understand who might call reinforcement, that might be Andy. But if you let them start calling their friends nonstop, it can get pretty ugly. I know, it sucks to pause this. This entire thing is optional, just to give you an idea of how open it is. Like, yes, there's a cinematic there, but if you decide to grab the car and jump through the window and try to manage to survive by getting out down, like it's gonna work too. It's gonna be supported. Ren's gonna call you. He's gonna be pissed off that he didn't use his awesome setup to get out, but it's still gonna go along. So we don't want to force you to play in a certain way, and certainly not in a certain way to get out as well.
Yeah!
Yeah, baby!
Holy fuck, this is awesome.
You can poop your pants later, man. Because we are just getting started.
Are you ready to take some questions from the crowd?
Yeah.
All right, what is our first question from the audience? I know you guys got one. All right. Tell us your name, where you're from, and give us your question.
My name's Dave. I'm from Ontario, Canada.
Oh.
Canada represent, all right. My question is, the first Watch Dogs, it was kind of, it had some PC optimization issues. I'm wondering if you guys are working on that. In particularly, the first, a big concern of the community was the forced mouse acceleration in Watch Dogs 1. There's no way to turn it off for aiming and stuff. It would always force the acceleration. Are you guys going to fix that, or the optimization in general for PC?
I would love to be able to answer in details your question, but I'm not an engineer. The one thing I would say is I know we have an entire team dedicated since the beginning on the PC, and they're working their ass off to make sure it's polished, and that's why it's coming at the same time as the PS4 and the Xbox One.
Going down the line.
Yeah. So I'm Infinium from the Watch Dogs subreddit. So I want to ask about the online modes. What modes will make it to the second Watch Dogs, and what will happen to online hacking? What changes will be there?
I didn't understand. I didn't hear the question. I looked at too much rock concert in my life. I have shitty ears. So.
What multiplayer modes are making it into,
cool.
into the game?
Thank you. Great question. Well, the first thing was to make sure that everything was a lot more seamless this time around. Like, there was too much loading moments in the first game for our own sake. We wanted to have something that was a lot more organic. So when you wander around, like I've shown in that video, well, you can just have the emergence of other players going on, but as soon as you press a button, then you have the co-op mode. That's the new one we're adding. And we're making sure to have a lot of content in there. So like there's the entire free roam, which this time around, by the way, I don't know if you guys played, but pretty much everything except the mission at the end was free roam stuff. And there's hundreds of that stuff in the world. So there's a lot more to do just in that mode. If you go in co-op, then there's several different layouts, and they're all gonna cascade into difficulty as well. And the invasion is back. But this time around, it's a lot more seamless, which means that if you wander around in the city and the game proposed an invasion, that means the guy is right outside the corner and he's already into your game, so you can already go and do it. But this time around, with all the tools that we've added, it kind of changes the game a lot about invasion. So those are the two we're talking about right now.
Chase, we had a couple of questions here too, so we'll...
You got a question?
Are you going to bring back the apps and the hacking the other players from in-game? Like, say for instance, like in Watch Dogs 1, they all everybody hacked out to everybody else when you go inside in their game. Are you bringing that back too? Are you bring that to as well?
would it be possible to crank up the volume of the mic a little bit?
Try to ask like a little bit closer to your image.
Are you going to bring back the in game where you hack the other guys that's in on their own game, like?
Yeah, that's the invasion we talked about earlier on. So yes, we're bringing those back, and all the new gadgets you're going to be able to use them. The thing that's kind of cool is if you control your drones around and you're invading my game. If I use NetHack and profile your drone, I'm gonna know where you are. So there's some interesting, neat dynamics there. So you have to kind of stop touching your drone, so I don't know where the signal comes from, and that kind of stuff's going on. So there's a lot more dynamics to find the player. So it's gonna be a little bit harder for the hacker, but at the same time, we've removed some of the exploits of the first game that the victim could do. So like all of these stuff together, I think is gonna improve a lot the experience.
All right, got some other questions? You guys over here?
Going back to the free roam, as seamless, and that's awesome. I love the concept and being able to connect with somebody right away. But is there going to be the option to not connect and see more than one person in the world and just kind of cruise down the road or cause mayhem without actually connecting, but you'll still see them when you're in close proximity,
It's
like free roam?
Exactly how it works, out of the box. Like it works like that out of the box. The way it works is you're alone in your game, or you're never alone in your game. Like you drive, or you move, what the hell you want actually. And geolocalized wise, we're matchmaking people together. So you will often have players into your game and not know it. And sometimes you're going to see them, sometimes you're not going to see them, you're going to be busy doing something else. So yeah, the first function is to just see what they're doing, and of course, you can use it to show off what you're doing. And I'm expecting a lot of that to happen. So people can just show off some cool stuff, fuck around with other players, do some cool things. And and that's probably how you're going to say, oh, that guy's cool, I want to play with him, or I want to do something, and then you play with him. But the first encounter is neutral. And sometimes we're proposing invasions. Some of the time we're just letting you do co-ops. And of course, if you really want to play the game co-op, like right off the bat, you have your friend, you just bought the game. Within the phone, you have a contact list, a bit like a real phone. You can just literally go and ask him, and we're going to teleport you there and do everything to easy off like the experience this way as well.
Thank you guys very much for your questions. We appreciate you being here with us today. We hope that you learned a little something, and if you want to get your print signed, Jonathan will be right here, so come on up and say hello. Thanks again.
Thank you.